With us today, we have Katy Townsend, best known right now for Maddie Nolan, a very complicated character, I would say, on Arcane Season 2. Katy, thank you for joining us today.
Love to be here. It's so nice to hang out with you.
I appreciate it. I really do. And by the way, love the accent.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Listen, us Americans, we don't really have one. Well, we don't think we do. It's one that causes fear in the rest of the world, I think.
No, we love an American accent. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that.
I love your accent.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, where to start? I'm from Glasgow in Scotland. Speaking of accents, I'm from Glasgow in Scotland. That's where I grew up. I grew up in a wee village outside Glasgow. And there's so much. Like, where do I even tell? I moved out to Los Angeles when I was in my early 20s to pursue acting and sort of my creative dreams. And I've been out here ever since. I got stuck here, unfortunately. Oh, I hate when that happens. So I'm living out here, working away, enjoying my life, trying to discover who I am, all this stuff. And and I can go into all sorts of detail, but I just don't know what else you want to know.
So was the acting always the goal? Was that what you wanted to do from a young age?
Yeah, I did. I was quite, I think there was moments when I was a child where I was quite introverted and started from a young age in sort of a drama club just to kind of bring me out of my shell. But it's always something I wanted to do, but it's always something that I struggled with because it took a lot of confidence to get up on stage and to do sort of public speaking and for the spotlight to be on you. So it's a craft I've always loved, but it took a long time for me to, I suppose, like make peace with wanting to have the spotlight on me. And so that's something I've kind of always wrestled with. It's certainly a craft that's pushed me out of my comfort zone time and time again and continues to do so. And so in that way, it keeps me on my toes. And that's something I really love about it. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of the things I think you don't hear a lot about when you talk to people that are either in the industry or whatnot is, the work that it takes to just get to that place. I know in this industry, like just doing like content creation and everything else, there's always that imposter syndrome. Do you ever feel that way?
All the time. I felt that way, like in the premiere for Arcane. I felt that way. I felt, oh my God, I shouldn't be like, when they were like, we're going to get the actors on the red carpet. I was like, what? I was like, oh, I'll just stand over here. I'll just stand over here with like my drink or whatever. They're like, no. It was, absolutely plagued by imposter syndrome. All the time. I deal with it all the time. I'm not sure that ever really goes away for some people. I don't know. I can't imagine. It's such a core component of who I am that I can't imagine living without it, because I feel like, well, then what's the flip side of that? Is it feeling entitled all the time, or is it not? Is it just feeling comfortable within your position? It seems like a whole spectrum.
Sure. Well, let me ask you this. There is that fear of like imposter syndrome and everything else. But do you find that the fun or the enjoyment of doing what you wanted to do outweighs that?
Yes, and it's certainly at this moment in time, but it hasn't always. It's ebbs and flows, and then there's been so many moments, Tony, where I've found myself at a crossroad where my career has not been going well. I've been struggling to get even auditions, never mind jobs, and and there's no joy, right? The career I'm pursuing is bringing me no joy because there's no work. It's just this kind of empty void where I'm like, do I want to do this? Do I still want to do this? Who am I without this? All these kind of existential questions come up in those moments. But the highs are high and the lows are low.
Sure. Understandable. Well, I know a lot of content creators, especially like people who are aspiring voice actors. There's that fear that it's almost the let's just say they feel like they're compromising to do roles that don't pay just so that they can at least do what they're supposed to be, or that they think they should be doing. Do you have any advice for someone who, I mean, we haven't even gotten to talk about what we're here for, but
no, I love talking
yeah.
about this stuff. Yeah. So what's your do I have advice for someone in that
So
kind
you
of
have any
position?
advice that's maybe wanting to start off, or they're doing stuff and they're getting recognized, but they're just not getting there? And you know, any tips from what you've done, anything like that?
So starting out, if we're just focusing on the niche of voiceover, starting out, I I actually got a voice reel made when I was a
Mhm.
teenager, and I didn't have a lot of money for it, so I drove down from Scotland down to England,
Mhm.
and it was just like some guy who had like a hut in his garden that
Oh,
I gave a few £100 to, and he was kind of a bit weird. You know, we put this reel together, and I started sending it out. And to begin with, when I had no credits, I found myself doing a lot of free stuff.
mhm.
You know, a lot of it started out like, I'll do favor, you know, and again, it might also be that might also encompass that kind of imposter syndrome of like, I'm just grateful to be in the same building with these people, or I'm just grateful they want to use my voice. And I think all that's well and good. You know, I think building up a resume, pardon me, building up a resume with free projects, offering, you know, and it's a privilege for them. You know, I think that's something we forget. Like if someone's able to hire you for free, that's a privilege for them. And so in that sense, I think I'm all for doing free stuff to build a resume, but you need to know when to stop, because that becomes a bit of a safety blanket, because then you don't, you know, you can get very comfortable in that place of low budget and no budget stuff. And, oh, but I'm not really
Yeah.
a voiceover. It's just kind of, I've got my full-time job and this is kind of a side. But at some point, if you really want to do that and you're serious about it, you have to take the leap. And that's
Yeah.
quite scary, because then you have to say to yourself, well, I'm going to, you know, move forward as a professional, and I'm going to start asking for people to pay me for this. And
Mhm.
there's a chance that they might not want to pay me for this, and there's a chance I might not get work. And then it's like, you know, what does that mean for me? Is that a
Yeah.
failure? And the answer is no. Like it takes a lot of perseverance. None of this stuff happens overnight. Some of the most profound, you know, some of the most well-known voice actors that I look up to and aspirational figures are quite a bit older than me. You know, I mean, they've been working. It's taken decades to
Yeah.
get to that level. But yeah, I think I'm all for, you know, I'm all for collaborations, right? Creative collaborations are one thing. Getting together with friends, oh, this is a cool project, I want to be part of it. I'll offer them my voice in exchange for some reel that I can use to get other work.
Mhm.
But then there's sort of you don't want to blur lines to becoming exploited. You know, maybe there's companies that can afford to pay you, but they don't really want to. So they're going to ask you to do it for free, or I'll give you
Yeah.
$50. I'll give you $100 to do this, and we get a buyout and we get to use this for our local station. Like, no, like there's got to be a balance there, because essentially it's there's so many moving parts and things happening at once that you've
Mhm.
got to, you know, there's so much noise. You've got to clear it all out and say, what do I want here? Do I
Yeah.
want to be a voice actor or not? And you need to act in self-interest. It's great to, you know, collaborations are great. Building up a resume is great, but you want to make money. You want to make it your career.
Right.
And so, but I understand the complexities of that for sure. I didn't really know that was a thing. I didn't know there was a lot of content creators that actually wanted to pursue this profession. Is that something you're interested in, or is it something friends of yours are interested in?
I've never thought of it myself. I do know that there is a number of people that I'm friends with, whether on social media or not, that
Right.
are voice actors. There are some that are doing kind of like the soap dramas on like podcasts.
Oh
They're
yeah.
trying to get their names out there, doing different things. And I know um, just from like within the TikTok community, there's actually a number of people that do voice acting things
Oh wow.
where you'll have sometimes like small companies that are doing small jobs, and they'll say, hey, here's the script, give us a duet
Mm,
or video, and then they want you to act it out with really no context. And so it's really
that
people
sounds
trying to throw
familiar.
themselves, yeah, exactly, right. um but yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from. I think it from every aspect, you have to know what you're worth, and being willing to stand for that. And I think, you know, I definitely, I appreciate that. I know there are people who will hear this and will appreciate it. So let's go ahead and get into
Oh
what
yeah.
we're kind of here for.
Oh yeah.
And I'll tell you, when we were getting this all set up, I am so glad that I waited till today to do this.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, part of the thing was you doing interviews, you couldn't talk about anything that happened
Yeah.
that wasn't already released. And with part 3 being released now, we can just get into the deep of it, which we need to.
Right.
So let's go this way. Tell me your thoughts about Maddie Nolan from Arcane.
I think Maddie Nolan is a very well-written, multifaceted, complex person in this universe, as are all the characters. I think she's multiple different things, and we see that unfolding throughout throughout the 3 acts of the show. What else do you want me to say?
I feel I'm just going to say this, and this is not trying to fluff you up at all, but I do feel like she needed more time on the show.
Oh, sure.
We got brief glimpses with her that gave different impressions of the character, and I think like it fleshed people out. And I mean, I don't know if you've gone through social media and looked at any of the Maddie Nolan videos, like whether it's on TikTok or Instagram. The ones like before the 13th are like, if Maddie dies, we riot.
I know.
And then it kind of changed a little bit.
Do you know what? And that was so funny because and I've said this a few times in interviews, I think I underestimated how beloved Maddie was going to become from just that early glimpse of the character. I didn't know people were going to fall in love with her in that way. And of course, she's got the cutesy little look, and she's got this kind of like wide-eyed optimism, and she just is this fresh face and perspective on the world. And so I think a lot of people warmed to the character. When I saw the outpouring of love, I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. That's when I knew. I thought, okay. And there was such an outpouring of love on my social media and online, and I was trying to respond to people, but I was also in the back of my mind, I was like, am I like lying to these people? Like, I felt sort of very conflicted by it all. But it's like, do you know what it's like? It's like when a roller coaster is just going up and up, and the further up it goes, the drop's going to be just so delicious. And I thought, yeah, this is going to ruffle some feathers.
Oh, okay. It is happening a lot. I mean, think of it this way. Book adaptations to movies, or shows, you'll have people that are like, oh, I really love this character, and people who have read the book going, I'm so sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Yes, 100%. Yeah, I've wondered about that. I've wondered how much, because I know there's just so much, there's infinite spoilers online now. So I wonder how that's going to work moving forward, because my feeling is that as the months and years go on, more and more people are going to discover this show and fall in love with it. So I wonder how much of a surprise those reveals are going to remain.
Well, yeah, the discourse may go on for a good long while, especially, I mean, since this is an adaptation from a widely popular, multiplayer game, and you've got these characters, and it fleshes out. And I remember a lot of people were talking about, Arcane likes to set you up in ways that you don't expect to happen.
Yes.
But let me ask you this: going into this, when you were offered the role of Maddie Nolan, did they tell you what the end game was for her? I mean, we're not talking about what happened. Yeah, we can. It's out there, so spoilers if you haven't seen it.
They did not tell me. Now, my feeling was that they didn't yet know themselves, but now I'm starting to question that, Tony, because I spoke to one of the writers at the Shrine event in LA. It was like a finale screening for the final act, and he was like, oh, it was so exciting because we knew and you didn't know, and it was so fun to be able to and I was like, wait, I thought we were all discovering it. I thought it was just a decision that was made at some point, but I'm starting to think maybe that was actually part of the plan, or potentially part of the plan all along. But when I got offered the role, I was told that this was going to be a youthful, wide-eyed new enforcer in the scene. She was going to become part of this core strike team, and that she was going to be involved in some kind of entanglement with Kate and kind of ruffle some feathers, and there was going to be a little bit of a hint of a triangle situation emerging. But that's all I knew. I had no idea that she was going to, well, I didn't even know if the character was going to like, I think originally they said, oh, she might die, your character. We're thinking of a way to kill her in a spectacular death. And then suddenly it was like, oh, she might die. And also she's like a spy. And I was like, wait, what? And so, and it's funny because I had to really separate my own, it's really my own ego, my own desire, me as Katy, my own desire to be loved. I'm like, I want to play characters that everyone adores, and I want to be liked, and I want Maddie to be liked because Maddie's an extension of me, and I poured so much of myself into this character. But also the sort of the artist in me and the voice actor in me was like, this is really interesting as a character arc. This is actually way more interesting than if it had been all nicey and one note. Like, and so I was able to separate those two things. And then I was like, Wahaha, I'm ready to lean into this chaos. All right.
Okay. So let me ask you, how far into you doing your recordings was it until you found out, or was it actually to the filming of the last act or recording of the last act that you really knew that she was going to take that spy turn?
It was a while. So this spanned over, my recording sessions spanned over like 4 years. And so I want to say it might have been about a couple of years in or something after I got offered the role that I heard that potentially they were going to, and I actually think when I recorded that final section and that final line, ouch, I think that's when I really understood the picture, how the picture was playing out, and what and what was actually, and how that actually was going to unfold. I think that was my first moment of discovering that, and it was pretty shocking, you know. I mean, and amazing to see on the page, 1,000 times more amazing to then be sitting in the audience watching it at the shrine and watching it unfold, really, you know, as a complete piece for the first time, and really understanding the impact of that moment and hearing it around me and deafening screams and cheers and all kinds. That was really spectacular. That was wild.
Oh yeah. So that final scene, if you noticed when she goes to pull the trigger, there's a flash. Did you know about that little negative image? Have you seen it since?
Yeah. So
just for those who are watching this is what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
That grin.
Yes. Okay. So I only discovered this a few days ago. I missed it in the screening because I think there was just so much going on with the noise and the cheering and the screaming, and I was kind of covering my face. I was like, I can't bear it, my baby, and the whole thing. And then I missed that flash, and then I saw some banter about it on Twitter, and I was like, wait, what? And at first I thought it was her collar, and I know others thought it was her collar, but of course nothing in Arcane is an accident, and every frame has been animated, painted really meticulously. So I'm like, no, this is meant to look like a Cheshire Cat grin, and it was so shockingly sinister, and actually unlocked a whole other potentially dark dimension to this character that I hadn't even considered. One of the many multi-dimensional kind of aspects of genius within the show, for them to do that just with a single frame to potentially allude to so much was really amazing. But when I saw that, I was like, this is gonna haunt my dreams for the rest of my life. This is absolutely terrifying.
And it's you. It's you gave flesh to the character, which I think is by far, you did a fantastic job. I think when you're going through and you're looking, like, even that moment where Maddie has with V, where she's like trying to bring her on and she reaches out for her, that was such a beautiful scene. And to know that you may not have even like really known too much about what was going on, and even the character changes for you, that's pretty impressive. And I do have to give kudos to the production team for Arcane to do that. Sometimes, do you ever feel like you would have liked to have been in on the joke at that point, or at least mentally or like emotionally prepared for it?
I'm glad I wasn't, because I bet no matter how good you are, how good you think you are as an actor, I bet something in my performance would have colored that scene with something else that was not wide-eyed optimism and admiration, which is exactly what they were going for. Although I did see like a TikTok sort of edit where someone edited it to more sinister music. And it actually, well, again, the power of music, as we know from the, another layer of genius in the show. But yeah, I did my voice against that kind of darker sort of music and score. I was like, oh, she does seem a little evil here. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. But that's not how I was playing, that wasn't my intention. Certainly not,
No, absolutely. Now, let me ask one more thing, and then I want to ask a little bit more about your career. If you would have had more time with the character Maddie, would you have done? What would you have liked to have seen that you would have been able to do with her? What would you have liked to have do? Whether it's fleshing her out more or seeing her in more action? Like, I mean, you said years with this character at this point. You know her well. Now you know her better, than most when it came to your motivations when doing the voice acting. What would you have liked to seen the character do, or would you have liked to seen the character do more of?
Well, it's funny because I was asked this in a previous interview. They were chatting about episode 7, the kind of alternate reality episodes, and how Maddie would potentially fit into that. I would have loved to have seen Maddie in the character of Maddie interwoven into that. I would have loved to have seen another sliding doors kind of aspect to that character. That would have been really exciting because, look, the scene that final scene we just spoke about with the where she attempts to shoot Caitlin, or she's been tasked with killing Caitlin. I think, maybe I'm biased, I think I saw a glimmer of remorse on her face. I think the animator, it was just for a split second, if you go back and look at that, and coupled with the line that she appreciated Kate's warmth, I'm like, I would have loved to have explored that more, because I would have loved those human aspects of Maddie. I would have loved to have seen more interactions with Vi, and I would have certainly loved to have seen her become more central in a sort of a, I think originally it was meant to be more of a triangle, right? I think that was going to be explored a little more originally. Sure. I would love to have seen that situation play out, because I think it would have made for really interesting television. And I think it would have had its place in heightening, raising the stakes and heightening the emotion and creating a little bit more drama. And so, yeah, I would have loved to have seen more of those kind of intimate human moments. And I do wonder how that would have then played with the way things panned out in Act 3. Like, would it have actually hampered that arc, or would it have served it in some way? Would it have changed when the ending played out, would the audience have known Maddie more, so they would have had much more empathy, and there would have been more division, would there have been more devastation when she was murdered? I don't know, but it's hard for me to tell. But certainly I certainly wish there had been more of Maddie, for sure, and certainly in her relationship with Kate and relationship with Vi, that would have been really amazing.
Yeah. I feel like we should have gotten a lot more. Mind you, I do understand the idea that we got a limited view so that we didn't start suspecting, because there are people that were starting like, she's too optimistic, she's too she's too doe-eyed. I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, like, you don't put, if you were to really want to really surprise people, give them more time on screen, make them more of an anchor. And Maddie was one of those characters where she wasn't forgettable. She was there. She was, she had important parts, but then it was like, you almost felt like the writers weren't giving her as enough attention, because she was doing everything behind the scenes.
Yes. And they kept it behind the scenes. And I think that was definitely a choice. And so, and credit to their genius, it definitely landed from the reaction in the audience. It definitely, which surprised me. Again, I didn't expect the reaction to those shifting moments. And actually, I think, Tony, because remember that, some of the show had been leaked earlier in the year, and people had seen those leaks of the first 6 episodes. And having seen the leaks and understanding that Maddie was going to become a kind of bit of a presence, an intimate presence in Kate's life, there was so many spoilers on the internet from that. You're going to hate the character. You know, there was such a hype around hate, and I was like, oh, well, they don't know the half of it, right? Like, you know, that became such a focus.
Right.
Like, and so even, you know, even after the first episode, there was a lot of talk online, like people have seen the leaks and they say we're going to hate her or whatever. And it was like, oh, they think they're going to hate me because I intruded on this very sacred relationship between Vi and Kate, but they have no idea what's to come. And
Yeah.
I just think it was just crafted. The genius with which it was crafted is still amazes me, actually. Amazing, yeah.
So you've done interviews before the release of part 3.
Yeah.
How hard was it not to spill the beans?
It wasn't hard, but I don't think the interviewers were trying to trip me up or anything, but there was definitely like, they definitely mentioned, like, you know, there's talk that Maddie could be evil. And I was like, oh, interesting. You know, sort of, oh yeah. I said, oh, imagine that. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Like, and so just trying to sort of, I feel like my face and my eyes always betray me, Tony. I feel like the truth lives here. I'm like, they're like peering into my soul and they can see that I'm lying. Yeah, it didn't give me too much anxiety, but there was things that I knew, obviously, like, you know, the fate of Jinx, for example, that there was a couple of like, you know, Jinx is my favorite, but I feel like she might die, you know, almost wanting to, and I'm like, are they looking to read something on my expression? That's
looking for recognition in some sort of like,
yes,
like,
yeah, exactly. So that was a bit tricky. And then I feel like I was being a little overly careful with my answers because I didn't want to lie and I didn't want to panic and just kind of make up a lie about, you know, but I also, you know, wanted to be a little bit elusive, but also wanted to give them a decent interview or like still being open, you know, and we can have all kinds of discussions. So that was a bit of a tricky balance, to be honest.
Okay.
And actually, I heard from a couple of those interviewers, like, not how dare you, but they were like, you. And I was like, sorry, like they were shaking their fists and I was like, sorry.
Well, you know, it's funny because I think a lot of there has been a trend as of recent where actors have like openly lied about things. I think the most in the nerd world, the most I think the most like well-known one was for when Spider-Man No Way Home came out. Andrew Garfield was repeatedly asked while he was doing things like Tick Tick Boom if he was in the movie, and he just outright lied and said, I haven't heard from them. And they
will have told him to say that. Someone will have said,
okay,
I'm gonna put money on the fact someone on a PR team somewhere will have said, if anyone asks you, just say you know nothing about it. But yeah, it is kind of a lie, but also, yeah, a bit of a moral dilemma, isn't it, Tony? I don't know. Maybe I should have lied more, but no, I don't.
No, I think that speaks to your character. You know, it's one thing to just outright lie because of something like I could see Marvel being angry at, you know, someone for, you know, giving any tells because it happens and they get in trouble.
Marvel in particular, I think, are like, but also, so did he face a backlash for that?
Other than I think it was Emma, what was it? Emma Stone? Whoever it was that played Gwen Stacy in the Spider-Man movies.
It was.
She called him up and was like, you jerk. Like she was just angry. Like she was so mad at him. And then a lot of people were like, why don't all actors do this? Because then there'd be no way of anybody knowing.
Yeah, why don't all actors lie?
Yeah, but
we lie for a living, some could argue.
So us on the outside who are not part of productions that obviously have some desire for secrecy or anything else. And you had mentioned earlier that the first 6 episodes kind of got leaked and people had seen it ahead of time. Did you notice any like uptick in, like, let's say the group from Netflix or the production team reaching out and being like, we really need to lock this down, and just kind of like, what did that look like when a production company is trying to keep things hushed?
Well, nobody reached out to me. I reached out to them, actually, because I have gotten to know the team behind the show over the course of years and have become quite friendly with a lot of them. So I understand the depth of their love and passion for this project. And I knew when I saw the leak had come out, I knew that it would leave them devastated because it's all of their hard work spanning many years. And they were devastated. I think a lot of them were saying they were sort of there was a lot of panic at Riot, you know. I think there was a lot of tears. There was a lot. I think it was really upsetting, as it, you know, as you can imagine. And so that's all I know. I know it was deeply upsetting for everyone. It was deeply disappointing for everyone. But I also know that the way that the fans of the show rallied around the show to protect it and block spoilers and made a choice not to watch the spoilers really, really moved all of us and really, really meant a lot to the team at Riot and spoke wonders about the just the depth and of their connection with the fandom.
Yeah.
And the trust that they've built with the fans. And so that was actually really moving and amazing to see that. The fans saved the day, and they really did, because, you know, so many people just didn't engage and didn't spread the, and it's sort of just, they were kind of out there, I think, and some people looked at them, but there was no, you know, that was as far, I think, as it went. It didn't become a catastrophic thing, thank God.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Now, aside from Arcane, which, just, if you haven't watched it yet, please go watch it. It's amazing. Just artistically, and then just with the cast of characters, it's been such a roller coaster ride. You have a pretty good repertoire of voice acting that you have done with with video games, Mass Effect, Call of Duty, Fallout 4. Did you find yourself leaning toward some of these roles, or do they just kind of find you?
They kind of found me. I mean, my introduction to video games was a little sort of unorthodox. It was a bit strange because it was my first game I ever worked on was Ingress, if you're familiar, which is from Niantic Labs, was Google, and it's the sort of brainchild of John Haneke that predated Pokemon Go. He's the kind of genius mind behind like Google Earth and all that kind of stuff. And so I was working on that game for several years, which was interesting because it was an augmented reality game. I'd sort of done some theater and some on-camera stuff, and then auditioned for this augmented reality game, and I didn't really know what that was. And suddenly I was thrust into this very unusual universe of it's almost like a giant game of Risk, for those of you who aren't familiar with Ingress, that plays in real time in real locations, where you capture real territory and real monuments and interact with real actors. And so I was flying all over this place as this character Clue that I played, and was interacting with fans in real time at real monuments. And there was a lot of sort of online videos and leaked footage and leaked voiceover and document and all this stuff. And it was just like the wildest introduction to video games, but actually in retrospect, an amazing bridge to then, because it was after that game sort of started to wrap up that I actually found myself entering the more traditional world of games. And I think Fallout 4 was the first game that I booked after that. And I didn't seek it out, to be honest. I auditioned for the role in Fallout 4 and got cast for the role. But what was really interesting was, I remember my first day on the job, years prior, I had done a play in Hollywood, this theater called the Elephant Theater of Trainspotting, if you're familiar.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah. I did that, this small dark theater. It ran for months, right? We got, we did quite well, right? Like we got a lot of full houses. I mean, it just probably ran too long, to be honest. It ran for many, many months, and then we extended. But, when you do a show like that, you don't think you're doing it for the, no one's really making any money. You're doing it for your own creative joy. But the director of that, my director in Fallout 4 had actually randomly seen the play like years prior. And actually, I was naked in that play, Tony, between you and I. And so I was like, oh, weird. Now it's just gotten really awkward. I was like, now it's just awkward. Like, I don't know. And so I was amazed that a director of like such a massive video game had been to a small black box theater in Hollywood and had seen me in the play. So I don't know if that had any influence, but it was amazing that was kind of part of because apart from Ingress, I didn't have any other, I didn't really have any major credits when I landed Fallout 4. And didn't really know, I didn't really know what Fallout was actually when I got Fallout 4. So I didn't understand the magnitude of it. And I'm glad I didn't, because I actually think that would have made the whole experience a lot more daunting than it was. But yeah, I sort of landed, and you know, I know when you look at my resume, it's like one big game after the other, but bearing in mind, there was a lot of sort of like, there was a lot of famine in between these feasts, right? Like there was a lot of sort of like, you know, a couple of years between projects. And every time a big project finishes, I'm still, you know, left with this feeling, like we spoke about imposter syndrome earlier, of like, am I going to ever work again? Am I going to get anything else? Like what's, you know, and so, but yeah, it was kind of, I suppose I did kind of stumble into the niche. And then I fell in love with the niche because I love all the characters I've gotten to play in the projects I've been able to work on. And so it's become a great privilege. And the kinds of roles that I've been able to play in video games and now in animation just weren't there for me on camera. I just wasn't going out for those roles, those, you know, and so in that respect, this has kind of become my home. These niches have kind of become my home, and where I've got to play all kinds of wonderful characters, cage fighters and scientists and soldiers, and you know, all these really cool, dynamic, multifaceted women. It's really exciting. And so yeah, kind of just found a cozy wee home in a little niche, and you know, I've been embraced by these fandoms and have connected personally with a lot of the members of the teams behind these games and shows, and also feel like I have a deep connection with the communities and the fandom of these games and shows. So I've just it's been a real home for me. It's been really amazing the way it's all played out.
Yeah. Now, do you ever find yourself have you ever found yourself playing some of these properties that you've been a part of?
Yes. I'm not very good. Is an understatement. I've struggled, and I've done a bunch of open world games. I struggle with open world games because I think maybe having ADHD and a short attention span, if there's just a lot of nothingness, sorry, that's like an airplane. If there's a lot of nothingness for long periods, I just switch off. But I've spoken to other people with ADHD who it's the open world games are the opposite for. It's like, oh my God, there's so much to explore, and you know, days pass and they're still in front. So I don't know, but I definitely, it took me a long time. It took me too long in Fallout 4 to find my character, many hours. And I was like passing the remote to like family members. I was like, we've got to find her. I want to find her organically. And that was a real, And then I found her, and then the sound of my own voice freaked me out. And I was like, oh, I don't want to play anymore.
Oh yeah. See, so that's okay. So that's interesting. Do you like finding your character? Yeah, obviously you like being able to see what you've done, but do you oftentimes stand back and be like, oh, I just don't like hearing my own voice? Because I know I do that way. I never watch my own videos, so
a little bit. I do. I sort of, sometimes it depends. Sometimes my own voice is like nails on a chalkboard. I think we all feel that way. You know, I think that's natural. I think what's not natural is to be like in love with your own voice and your own image and all that stuff. Like that feels very weird to me. I think the normal response, or the very human response, is like, I think we all sort of like switch and recoil when we hear ourselves or see ourselves on camera. But yeah, I have definitely dabbled. I've not played a lot of Call of Duty as Charlie, but I do love Call of Duty. I probably played more Mass Effect than anything else. But yeah, I've definitely dabbled, but I'm not very good, and so that's very frustrating to me as well.
Yeah, especially if you don't really like open world too much, and you find yourself, you know, doing a lot of those.
Yeah, exactly.
Now with Arcane, you know, in your belt, you've done these amazing video games. Is there something in, you know, in the future that you really, just saying, throwing out the good vibes, throwing, you know, kind of claiming it for yourself? What would you love to see yourself in or doing, like anything at all?
Yeah, you know, I would love to do something in the animation realm. I would love to do something comedic, for sure. I got the opportunity to do a movie called The Loud House Movie with David Tennant, Michelle Gomez for Nickelodeon a few years back. And not only, I mean, I played a couple of characters in the movie, but I actually did all of the scratch for the whole movie. You know, before that, I did all the scratch for all the different female characters, or a lot of them, and the sort of main villain and stuff. And it was just outrageously hilarious. And I actually, my beginnings in Scotland were actually in children's theatre, big silly characters, music, dancing, all that stuff. And so it was like revisiting that. It fitted like a glove because it was going back to that very silly, over the top comedy. And yeah, I think I would. I mean, I don't even know how to answer that question because there's a multitude of things I want to explore. But yeah, I definitely would love to do more comical stuff in animation. But what I will say is something I think a lot of my characters, not all of them, but a lot of my characters have in common is that they're kind of bringing a little bit of comic relief to the project. I know that was the case with Kate in Fallout 4. She had some really funny lines. Suvi, I think, brought a lot of quirky kind of humor as well. And even Maddie in that opening scene, you know, I was talking to one of the composers about it. There was a complete change of score. I don't know if you noticed it in that scene with Vi. You know, it was all doom and gloom, and suddenly there's kind of this kind of silly, fun character, and there was kind of like lighthearted music. And I do enjoy bringing that levity to projects. And when I'm reading a script, I'm always looking at it through the lens of where's the funny, where's the levity. That's just how my brain works. I'm always looking for the jokes or a way to deliver a line in a way that's going to be a bit funny. So I would love to take that and just run with it. And just, yeah, I'd love to. But I mean, there's so many, I mean, as you know, there's so many incredible projects out there in the world just now that I would
see now I don't know if you're familiar with the Stanley Parable.
No, but maybe share.
Or is it the Stanley Paradox? I can't remember which one it was. It's basically a character that just starts off in a room and you go through and there's a narrator narrating everything. And at some points the narrator seems very dull and dry until you don't do what he's telling you to do.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yes, okay. yes.
So I could absolutely see you being like a very like straight laced, but then all of a sudden once things aren't going the way you're you know the narrator plans, just starting to insult people, you know, and just having fun with it.
That's really interesting, actually. That's like a really interesting assessment of where my kind of humor and dryness kind of sit, actually. Yes, I think that is something I'd be interested in, and something that would probably, that kind of dynamics really, definitely really interesting to me for sure.
Okay. Well, I'll be looking forward to seeing that if that happens soon. Now let me just ask this real quick. I've taken so much of your time, and I've
taken yours. Thank you so much. This has been joyful. Thank you, Tony.
So you have done video games, you've done animation, you know, you've done things. I even saw, I saw the Loud House and stuff like that. And so, do you find yourself what do you find yourself a fan of? Like beyond your own things that you do, like what if you were just to like get off the camera, go and just nerd out on something, what is that thing that you're like a fanatic for?
So the last thing I nerded out on was Baby Reindeer. Did you see that show?
No.
What?
Baby Reindeer?
Oh my God, Tony.
Okay,
who are you?
I'm gonna look it up.
Who are you, Tony?
I will not let this day go without.
Do not listen. And now I can't spoil it for you. It's just exceptional. Yes, it's dark, gritty, comedic Britishness. That's what I liked. That's what I like to nerd out on. I can't. You need to watch it and then we'll follow up with another conversation about it. But yeah, that's the kind of, and I love, it's also like it's a kind of mini series which suit me and my short attention span in general. I love series, and that's what I love about Arcane. I love masterpieces that span a couple of seasons and then and then it's put away into a glass cabinet like the perfect masterpiece that it is, and they don't just beat it to death. And so Baby Reindeer is one of those. It's a wee masterpiece, and I'd love for you to watch it. But yeah, that's the last. Yeah, anything sort of dark and dark humor is kind of where that's kind of where my interests kind of lie for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why I love doing Trainspotting, the show years ago, because it's kind of that. And I also think that feels very much like the humor of my ancestors. Feels like the humor of my culture, right? It feels very Scottish. That's very Scottish. It's ingrained in us.
Yeah, I can see that.
dark, dry, gritty, delighting in the bleakness of it all. You know, it's just observational hilarity of the culture, you know, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of where my yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I'm into.
Okay. Last thing. What will we find you in next? Do you have any big plans?
I'm in a game, I think, unless they've like cut me out of the game. We'll find out. We'll find out early next year. I'm in a game which I think / hope is going to be a really good game that's coming out early next year. And that's all I can talk about.
That's all you can say.
That's all I can say. But and yes, I hope to get hired for more jobs. Tony, do you want to put a good word out there for me into the universe?
Oh, absolutely. Listen. Your work speaks for itself, but absolutely, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing more of you, and we'll definitely have to touch bases and catch up again because I now want to know what this game is, and I'm gonna have to sit on it until next year.
You're gonna have to. Yeah, I hope it's a. Yeah, I don't want to give too much. Yeah, I hope so. Hopefully it's good.
And I'm also going to say this because this has nothing to do with anything that we said in the conversation, but I also think you need to be one of like the snarky party members on like Baldur's Gate 4 when they decide to do that.
So yeah, so I did a convention. So I didn't know about Baldur's Gate. Weirdly, I don't know.
Really?
Was I living under a rock, Tony? I don't know what happened. And then I did a convention. I'm in Glasgow in September that called Acme Comicon, and a bunch of the cast from Baldur's Gate was there, and like their line was like way out the door. I mean, they were so popular, and I was like, oh my god, what is this Baldur's Gate game? And I still don't really know, but I thought maybe I should look into like doing like and look into that. Maybe I should try and get a role in Baldur's Gate 4. All right.
Just be prepared. It is an open world game in a big sense. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, especially if you like anything with Dungeons and Dragons. It's absolutely that. And but it's funny because the characters are very snarky with each other, and there are so many times that you'll approach a character and there are so many different dialogue options for them. I can imagine you'd be busy for a very long time.
Oh yeah, I think I'd really enjoy that. Actually, my character in the game that we hope I've not been cut out of, that is probably should be coming out early next year, she's snarky. I love that. Love getting my teeth sunk into that. Yes, I'm gonna look into that. I'll try and play a bit of Baldur's Gate 3, but I might really enjoy a project like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes, well, you've inspired me. Thank you, Tony.
Absolutely. Well, Katy Townsend, thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you have not seen Arcane season 2, it is already out. All episodes are out now, only on Netflix. Katy, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tony. Love being here. Thank you guys for watching.